There's a time to buy a bike. There's a time to ride it like hell. And eventually, there's a time to let it go. But for most riders, that last part is harder than it should be. We cling to old bikes like exes we haven't texted in years, telling ourselves we'll fix it up, take it out, relive the good times. But let's be honest, that bike you haven't ridden since Obama was in office, it's not coming back into your life. And even if it did, it wouldn't hit the same. This isn't about flipping bikes for profit. It's about knowing when your two-wheeled love story's over. Emotion versus logic, joy versus maintenance bills, and knowing the difference between nostalgia and dead weight. So here's how to tell when it's finally time to sell, even if it still breaks your heart. Number 1. You keep postponing maintenance. There was a time when you loved working on your bike. Chain maintenance was therapeutic, oil changes were satisfying, and you knew your torque specs better than your pin code. But now, you look at the bike and sigh. The chain's bone dry, the tires are squared off, and the check engine light's been giving you the silent treatment. You keep saying next weekend, but next weekend turns into next season. At this point, you're not maintaining a motorcycle, you're avoiding responsibility. When basic upkeep becomes a source of guilt instead of pride, it's a red flag. That bike isn't your passion anymore. It's your tax return in waiting. You're not going to suddenly become a better owner next month. If the idea of cleaning your air filter feels like being asked to repaint the Sistine Chapel, it's time to be honest. The love is gone. Sure, you could keep it around as a someday project, but that someday is already years late, and the resale value is dropping faster than your motivation. Someone else out there would love that bike the way you used to. Let it go before you've neglected it into a parts bin. A bike deserves better than being your mechanical guilt trip on two wheels. Number 2. It's been sitting for over a year. You told yourself you'd ride it once the weather cleared, then once work settled down, then once you replaced that battery. But now, it's been 15 months, 2 birthdays, and 3 Netflix subscriptions later, and it's still sitting there, collecting dust and judgment. A motorcycle isn't like a fine wine. Doesn't get better with time in a garage. It gets stale, it gets leaky, it gets bitter. Just like you when you realize the fuel system's gummed up. Every passing week of inactivity is another step toward the bike becoming a money pit. Rubber dries out, fluid breaks down, internal parts start throwing tantrums the next time you hit the starter. The longer it sits, the more it costs to bring back to life, and the more likely you are to keep putting it off. That's the loop. That's the trap. Let's be honest. If a bike hasn't moved in over a year, it's not a motorcycle anymore. It's a paperweight with delusions of grandeur. The only thing you're riding is nostalgia, so unless you're truly planning a comeback, and we mean actually doing it, it's time to let someone else give that machine the miles it deserves, because right now, it's dying of neglect, and so is your garage space. Number 3. Your riding style has evolved. You used to live for Redline. Every on-ramp was a launch pad, every corner a challenge. That sport bike was your rocket, your rebellion, your therapy. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Now you find yourself daydreaming about long, sweeping roads instead of tight apexes. You're more excited by luggage racks than lap times. And every time you crawl off the bike with your wrists throbbing and your knees screaming, you wonder, why am I still riding this thing? Motorcycles aren't just machines. They're extensions of who you are right now. And just like your clothes, your diet, and your sleep schedule, your riding style changes as you do. That Supersport might have been the perfect match when your priorities were speed and adrenaline. But if what you really want now is comfort, versatility, or backroad cruising without feeling like you've been in a street fight, then maybe it's time to admit the bike no longer fits the rider. It's not betrayal, it's growth. The bike didn't change, you did. And if every ride feels like you're trying to convince yourself it's still fun, that's not riding anymore, that's pretending. Sell it to someone who will love it the way you used to. Then go find the bike that matches you today. Number 4. Repair costs are catching up to the bike's value. There comes a moment when you get a quote from the shop and your jaw hits the floor harder than your bike did last winter. A new clutch, fork seals, electrical gremlins that'll take a few hours to diagnose. Suddenly, your cheap-to-run bike is burning through your bank account like it's a race to the scrapyard. This is the cold, uncomfortable truth about aging bikes. Eventually, the math just stops making sense. If you're looking at a $1,200 repair on a motorcycle that would sell for $2,500 in good condition, you're not maintaining it. You're investing in a lost cause, especially when those repairs don't even bring it back to like new, just barely functioning. And don't forget the domino effect. Fix one thing and another fails. You replace the stator, then the regulator. You patch a coolant leak, then the head gasket blows. Welcome to the land of diminishing returns, where every dollar you spend is a dollar you'll never get back. Unless the bike has deep sentimental value or collector status, this is usually when smart riders cut their losses. You can love a bike and still walk away. Sometimes, the most responsible thing isn't fixing it. It's letting go before it drains you dry. Number 5. It physically hurts to ride it now. You used to bounce off this thing like a teenager on a trampoline. Now, you ride for 20 minutes and spend the next 2 hours icing your knees. Your back screams, your wrists ache, and you start mentally bracing for the pain before you even grab your helmet. This isn't about being too old to ride. This is about the bike being too wrong for your current body. Clip-ons and rear sets that once felt aggressive now feel like medieval torture devices. That cafe racer seat that looks so clean? It's a brick with upholstery. Suspension tuned for track days? Your spine disagrees. Motorcycling is supposed to hurt your wallet, not your vertebrae. When you start avoiding long rides, not because of weather or time, but because of how you'll feel afterward, that's not passion, that's punishment. Plenty of riders ignore this red flag and end up resenting the bike they used to adore. But the smarter move is to admit the ergonomics just aren't working anymore. That doesn't mean giving up on riding. It means finding something that respects your joints. Comfort isn't a weakness, and selling a bike that hurts you isn't quitting. It's making room for something you'll actually enjoy riding, instead of just surviving it. Number 6. You have another bike that gets all the attention. Motorcycles are like pets. If you got more than one, it's painfully obvious which one's the favorite. You swear you love them equally, but the truth is right there in the tire wear and dust patterns. One bike gets the fresh oil, the warm-ups, the long rides. The other, it's sitting in the back corner like an unloved houseplant. At first, you tell yourself you're just rotating them. You'll ride it next weekend. Then, next weekend becomes next month. Before you know it, the battery's dead, the tires are all flat-spotted, and you're avoiding eye contact with it every time you walk into the garage. This isn't about practicality. It's about emotional bandwidth. If you've bonded with one bike and lost the spark with the other, that second bike isn't a machine anymore. It's guilt on 2 wheels. And deep down, you know it deserves better. It deserves someone who's going to ride it, not just polish it once a year and pretend the relationship is still alive. Selling doesn't mean betrayal. It means closure. It means giving your neglected bike a second chance at life instead of letting it slowly decay while your main ride gets all the love. Be honest. One of them needs to go. Number 7. It no longer excites you. There was a time you'd sneak glances at it like a teenager with a crush. Just seeing it in the garage would make you grin. You'd plan routes around the good roads just to feel what it could do. Every ride felt like it was a date with destiny. But now, you walk past it like it's a lawnmower. No spark, no pull, no temptation to gear up and go. It's not that the bike got worse. It's that your relationship with it changed. The honeymoon phase is over, and you're not even arguing anymore. You're just coexisting. This happens more often than riders admit. You used to get a bike's power, its quirks, its voice. What used to feel raw and thrilling now feels routine. And routine is the death of motorcycle romance. The worst part, most riders wait years to act on this feeling. They hold on out of obligation, nostalgia, or pure laziness, when deep down, they've already moved on. They're already looking at other bikes, watching YouTube reviews, comparing spec sheets, dreaming of something that does excite them again. When your motorcycle feels more like a chore than a joy, that's not a slump. It's a sign. A sign that maybe the next love of your riding life is waiting, right after you let this one go. Number 8. You've outgrown its capabilities. There comes a point when your bike stops being a teacher and starts being a limiter. Maybe it was your first real motorcycle. Maybe it was a great mid-tier pick back when you were still figuring things out, but now you've hit the ceiling and the bike can't come with you. You notice it when you're riding with faster friends and your machine just can't keep pace, no matter how hard you push. You notice it when you start outriding the brakes, the suspension, the power band. You take a turn and feel the chassis flex when it should have held firm. You twist the throttle and feel boredom instead of adrenaline. Outgrowing a bike doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you've changed. You've improved. You've developed an instinct for smooth cornering, late braking, proper throttle control, and now the bike can't keep up with your potential. And let's be real, riding a bike that's beneath your skill level eventually becomes dangerous. You start taking risks to extract performance that just isn't there. You override to fill the gap, and that's a recipe for crashes. When you outgrow a bike, don't guilt yourself into keeping it. Celebrate it. That bike helped make you the rider you are today. But it's okay to move on. You're ready for something more. Number 9. You're constantly window shopping for something else. You say you're not looking. You say you're just curious. But let's be honest. Your search history tells a different story. Craigslist, Cycle Trader, Facebook Marketplace, they've all become part of your morning routine. You're not just browsing. You're fantasizing. You're emotionally cheating on your motorcycle. Every time a clean, low-mileage R1200R pops up, your heart skips a beat. Every time someone lists a fully farkled adventure bike, you wonder what it would feel like to just leave. You start doing math in your head. Trade-in value, resale price, maybe sell a kidney on the side. You justify it with lines like, "This one's a better commuter," or "It's more practical." But deep down, you just want out. And here's the harsh truth. If you were still in love with your bike, you wouldn't be looking. You wouldn't be daydreaming about something newer, faster, more comfortable, or less needy. You'd be riding it. So if you catch yourself stalking used listings more than riding, take the hint. This isn't just a phase. It's a flashing neon sign that you've mentally moved on. And once the spark is gone, holding on out of guilt only makes it worse. Set yourself and your bike free. Let it find someone who looks at it the way you used to. Number 10. Insurance and registration are a waste. You're paying to keep the thing alive, but not to actually use it. That yearly insurance premium, it's funding the fantasy that maybe this is the summer I ride again. Registration renewal? Just another sticker slapped on a bike that hasn't seen sunlight since the last presidential administration. You're not owning a motorcycle anymore. You're babysitting one. And the worst part is, you know it's irrational. You've run the numbers. You've looked at the $400 in annual costs and realized that you could have rented a bike 4 weekends a year and still come out ahead. But your brain clogs to the idea that letting go is defeat. That selling the bike means giving up a part of your identity. That once it's gone, you're not a real biker anymore. Here's a dose of reality. Real riders don't waste money on guilt. If you're not riding, you're not a rider. You're a museum curator with a monthly bill. That money could be going into something you'll actually use, or toward a new bike you might actually ride. If your bike is costing you hundreds just to sit in the garage, it's time to cut the cord. The DMV doesn't care about your feelings, and neither does your wallet. Number 11. It's becoming a project bike that you'll never finish. Ah, yes, the mythical winter project. You told yourself you'd tear it down, clean the carbs, replace the gaskets, maybe even give it a fresh coat of paint. You even bought a few parts, some of which are still in the box. Others you can't find because they've been buried under a tarp for 2 years. At this point, it's less of a project and more of a shrine to good intentions. There's no shame in having ambition. The shame is in pretending it's still going to happen when you know damn well it's not. Life gets busy, tools get dusty. That bolt you stripped last fall is still haunting your workbench. Every time you walk by it, you get that tiny pang of guilt. Then keep walking. The truth is, a project bike that isn't progressing is just a dead bike with excuses taped to it. It's not helping your skills, it's not saving you money, it's not being loved. It's just draining your energy and occupying your garage like an expensive paperweight. If you're not going to finish it, do the honorable thing. Let someone else take the reins. Sell it to a wrench-happy enthusiast who will actually bring it back to life. Your fantasy deserves better than indefinite purgatory. Number 12. Life has changed. New job, kids, move. Sometimes it's not about you or the bike. It's about everything else. You didn't fall out of love with riding. Life got loud. Maybe you moved somewhere that feels more like dodging traffic than enjoying freedom. Maybe you had kids and suddenly disappearing for 3 hours on twisty roads feels more selfish than serene. Or maybe your new job demands everything you've got and the thought of gear up and go sounds exhausting instead of exciting. These are the moments when bikes become symbols of your past life. You start to miss who you were when you used to ride, not because the bike changed, but because you did. That helmet hanging on the wall becomes a relic. The battery's dead, the tires are flat, and every time you glance at it, you feel a mix of guilt and nostalgia. Letting go doesn't mean betraying part of yourself. It means recognizing that holding on can sometimes create more pain than release. Sell the bike now while it still runs, still shines, still has value, and give someone else the chance to make their own memories. You're not closing the book forever. You're just turning the page. And who knows, someday, that page might lead you right back. Number 13. You're keeping it for nostalgia, not use. There's the bike, parked in the corner of the garage under a cover that hasn't been lifted in months. You don't ride it, you don't even start it. But every time you think about selling it, you get that weird pit in your stomach, like you're about to give away a piece of your identity. You remember that road trip you took with it, the time it almost got you killed, the date night when you rolled up looking cooler than you actually were. That bike is tied to stories, your stories, and selling it feels like erasing them. But here's a cold truth. Memories don't need maintenance. They don't take up floor space. They don't leak oil on your garage tiles. You're not honoring the past by letting the bike rot. You're slowly turning something you once loved into a burden. That's not romance. That's inertia. If the only reason you're keeping it is sentimental, take some photos. Write the story down. Hell, keep the license plate if you must. But let the machine go. Someone else could be making new memories on it while you're still tripping over the center stand. It's not betrayal. It's liberation. And you'll always have the stories. You just don't need the clutter. Bikes are emotional. They're loud, leaky time capsules that hold our best memories hostage. But when the wrenching stops being fun, when the ride stops being comfortable, or when you'd rather scroll listings than turn the key, it's not just nostalgia holding you back. It's fear of moving on. So here's your sign. Be honest. Let it go. And when you do, tell us in the comments what bike you're selling and what you're getting next. See you on the road. Just maybe on something new.